Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, good evening, everybody. It's evening in Melbourne. Hi, I am Mayase Jere. I am based in Melbourne in the western suburbs, and I'm really excited to join Gertrude today to share my story. Humble beginnings. I was born in Zambia, in Lusaka. I was born to a teenage mom, so my initial years of life were with my grandmother. My grandmother has played a really important role, especially now that I reflect on it, on really thinking about culture and being deep-rooted and connected to culture. So born to a teenage mom, raised by a grandmother in her early childhood. And from a heritage perspective, my maternal side of the family is Bemba. If you know a little bit about Zambia, Bemba is in the northern side of Zambia, and my paternal side is Ngoni. So the eastern side of Zambia is where they're from, but originally they're from South Africa, from the Shaka Zulu Empire. If you have done a little bit of African history, you know that Zwangendaba left the Shaka Zulu kingdom, moved up, and the Jere clan. So my name is very chief empowered, king empowered. The Jere clan is the one that moved from Zwangendaba and based themselves in the eastern part of Zambia and part of the Ngonis. So my name, I really cherish my name and my surname, because even in the history books, you'll hear of the Jere clan and coming from the Shaka kingdom to settle in Zambia. So really from a background of warriors who are Ngonis and Bembas who are, strong storytellers. My childhood was in Zambia. So first kind of grew up with my grandmother in Kabwe, and then moved to live with my parents in Lusaka. I did make a pit stop in Zimbabwe. I spent a couple of years in Zimbabwe as a young person, living with my mom's elder sister. And that was also a base, to move to a different country and start understanding a different culture, learning a different language. But as a young child, you really pick things up quickly. And so I have a strong connection to Zimbabwe, and Kwekwe specifically is where we used to live. And so, yeah, strong connection to Zimbabwe as well. Then came back to Zambia, lived with my parents. And then in 2004, I moved to Australia as an international student. I moved to Perth, Australia. I went to Curtin, studied, what did I study? Information technology and e-commerce. And currently I work as an agile project manager for a company in Melbourne, and my role is to look after 2 teams that are in the digital space. My family, a lot of my family, my extended family is in Zambia. My parents are still in Zambia, but 10 years ago, my brother moved to Melbourne. I probably dragged him to Melbourne so he could join me. And so I'm really grateful and honored to live in Melbourne, but also have my brother as my family close by. The rest of my extended family, my parents, my cousins, everybody else is in Zambia. I have over the years really built a strong connection with some amazing, wonderful people. So I'm always happy to be an auntie in the community. I have amazing nieces and nephews, and people sometimes asking me, they're like, I'm like, oh, I was looking after my niece and nephew. I was babysitting them. Their parents had a day out and I was with them, and they're like, oh, I didn't know your brother had kids. And I'm like, nah, my brother doesn't have kids. In our culture, an auntie and an uncle is somebody who has a close relationship with you. It doesn't have to be blood relatives. It has, the person who has strong connections with you. So a lot of my, close friends, best friends, their kids, I'm auntie to them. Their home is my home. My home is their home. And I really take the time to enjoy their company as well. And yes, so that's a little bit about me and my background.
Life is really funny. I grew up in Kwekwe.
Oh,
Kwekwe is
wow.
my yes. So what years were you in Kwekwe?
Well, oh my goodness. I did my grade 2 to grade 5 at Kwekwe Junior. And let's see. So this would have been, I need to count back. 97, 96. So 90 to 91 to 95, I think. Yeah, 95,
91 to 95. Where was I? I would have left by then. I was living in Harare. Then I moved to South Africa in 94. So we just met each other.
Yeah.
Wow. So you probably know my sister's family. Her kids went to that school. Do you know that Imairo?
Right. To be honest, I can't remember. It might be one of those things like when we meet face to face, it will be a face that clicks and I'm like, I know this face. I just can't tell where it was. But yes, that was where I was.
I went to Kwekwe High School and Fitchley, so we could have bumped into each other back home.
Yeah.
Incredible. So let's unpack your story. You've had a fascinating story. Your decision to go into IT, where did that come from? Who inspired you? What was the main decision to go into the IT field?
Yeah, so I finished high school at the period, that was 2000, let me think, 2001, right? And in those days, there was a lot of tech was becoming a thing. Before, a lot of concentration was careers everybody knows you need to be a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer. That was it. So, when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a lawyer. And in Zambia, if you were good at history, they said do law because it meant you could actually read a lot. You could consume a lot of all of those historical Shaka Zulu kingdom things. And so that was, what I wanted to do when I was younger. But when I started getting to senior high school, technology was becoming a thing. And I got into graphic design and I really wanted to be a graphic designer. So when I finished school, grade 12, I was thinking to myself, all right, graphic design, let's get into this. I started doing some short courses, started doing computer courses, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, when, you used to go into a little computer and everybody's using the same computer. But when it came to university, I was like, well, do I really want to study graphic design at university. Like what I didn't know what job you'd get as a graphic designer. Had no clue. All I knew is like maybe you'd be making posters and that would be your job, making posters. And I was like, I really don't want to end up just making posters. So what can I do? And then I was talking to someone who was in network engineering at the time, and they said, oh, you should do computer engineering, do software engineering. Because if you do software engineering, then you can do your graphic, you can know how the computer works, and then that will give you a bigger skill set. And I was like, sure. So that's how I jumped in. And my first course was computer science. I jumped into computer science because somebody directed me to software engineering.
That is fascinating. My first career was as a COBOL programmer, 1986. I programmed in COBOL, BASIC, Pascal, and Fortran, first generation languages.
Goodness, that is amazing.
I ended my IT career as a systems analyst, graphics designer, project manager in IT, and that's what got me my skilled migrant visa to go to New Zealand. So that's why I'm saying lives are so parallel. We could have
intertwined.
So when you were studying, you were in South Africa, correct?
No, I came to Zimbabwe first. So I did Zimbabwe Solusi University, and then I moved to Australia after that.
Okay. Now the transition to Australia, a young Zambian woman coming all the way to the other side of the world. How did you make that happen? Did you get a scholarship? What was the inspiration to coming to Australia?
Really, that inspiration was my mom. Let's just say my mom's prayers got me here.
Wow.
So I had been to Solusi, but after, the turmoil at that time with Zimbabwe, the economy, and I came back.
Time.
I was there at a really tumultuous time, difficult time, and difficult for even, so much more for everybody else who was in the country at that time. So I came back and I told my mom, I'm like, okay, I'm going to look for universities in America or the UK. I was never really keen about America. So I just, I wasn't too keen. I don't know why. But I wasn't too keen to go to America. And the UK I heard was really cold. So I was also kind of like, I don't know, I don't know if I want to go. But Australia came to us through those, the university people who go around the country and they have like trade shows and all of that. So my aunt, my late aunt, my mom's elder sister, had gone to one of those and she saw Australian universities and she came and she got me. She's like, hey, you need to go and talk to these people and see what they offer and see whether you can get a scholarship to go and all of that. And I went there, talked to a couple of those, I don't know if we call them recruiters, but the university representatives. I can't even remember what specific unis they were from. And I was like, think about it. And then my mom got interested as well. She was like, okay, maybe Australia is the place to go. So she was really determined to get me to Australia. I was a bit reluctant, only because in those time I used to run a home shop. So I was kind of like pretty independent, running my mother's business, pretty chilled and having a good life. But she was like, no, you need to go. And we found an agent, and that's how Australia materialized. But it also materialized at the right time, which is why I say it's my mother's prayers, because my mother had been working for an NGO for a long time. And as we know, Australian visas are very expensive. So that NGO was wrapping up and closing, and they gave her gratuity. So she took that gratuity, all of that money, she took it, bought my ticket, paid for my accommodation for 3 months, paid for my first semester fees. That was it. The money was gone. It was just put in me coming to Australia.
That's just incredible. What a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So mother knew that this would set you up for life, and it certainly
Yeah.
has. That is
Yeah.
just wonderful. So besides you and your brother, it's just two of you, two siblings?
Yes, two siblings.
Okay. And your brother is older than you or younger than you?
Younger.
All right. So you orchestrated bringing him to Australia.
Yes, I did. I did. When he was finishing, same thing, he was finishing grade 12.
Yes.
I just thought, it might be good to have him come over. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it because at that time I didn't even have my PR.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, you know what? If God made it happen for me, who am I to say it won't happen for him? And,
Yes.
um, brought him here after he finished his grade 12 for him to do college. He went to TAFE and then went to university to do civil engineering. So he's a environmental civil engineer at the moment.
That is just amazing. Now, for a lot of people who might listen to this show who don't understand our lives as African people, when we succeed, we pull somebody else up with us.
Yeah.
When you succeed, you not only support yourself in the current country you're living in, but you're sending money home, you're supporting extended family. Talk a little bit about that, and how have you navigated that? How have you juggled to keep both worlds balanced?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I nowadays I'm also debating with the concept of black tax, right? We talk
Yes.
about black tax and we really talk about it as a burden. Sometimes, right? If you think about tax, it doesn't have so much as a
Yes.
positive
And then
positive connotation. It
it
has a
doesn't.
negative connotation to it. But I think about it as really, for me, being here has set my brother up, has set my family up. I have enough resources to not just help myself, but to help my family. And so nowadays, I really consider it as being in the right place at the right time, because I'll probably be not saying I wouldn't be doing this if I was home, right? Like if I was in Zambia with my parents, you'd probably still have a bit more responsibility still.
Yes.
But what this opportunity kind of gives you is the breath to do a lot more, even when it comes to giving to initiatives at home, even when it
Yeah.
comes to you opening your heart to give to communities here. Because I
Yes.
already do that with my own family, I tap into the same energy and give that to communities here that are important to me. So
Yeah.
I think about that now, that it's a constant reminder of just what the culture and the richness of the culture is, because the culture is about looking after each other. Wherever you are, you must always remember to look after each other. So Black Tax is good for us because it's teaching us how to be communal. But I won't lie that sometimes it's a burden. So sometimes you just feel as if you're overwhelmed and it's too much that's being asked of you, whether it's financially or emotionally. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of culture that's embedded in that, in terms of like really thinking of not of yourself. Ubuntu is about thinking about everybody else and
Collective.
connecting that through that.
Yeah. It is about the collective. It's never about us as individuals.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what were the major challenges you experienced when you moved to a foreign country? Were you homesick? How did the African, or rather the Australian community, embrace you? Have you experienced racism? What has been your experience there?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. And
Mm,
parts of the journey in terms of like acceptance from the Australian community has also been my acceptance of my own roots and how I kind of bring them to the community. I remember my initial years of being in Perth, and What did let me think. So if I think about what I knew about Australia from home, there used to be
Yes.
like a TV show called Skippy the Bush Kangaroo. I can't remember if that was
I remember
the
it.
name
I
of the
remember. Yes, I remember
yes,
that.
in my head, that's what I knew about Australia, and it used to be like, there was some indigenous aboriginal characters in there. There was obviously the
Yes.
kangaroo, and some white folks as well in there. So that was what I had about Australia. So when I came, parts of it, aside from learning being in a new country and all of this, parts of it I remember just going, wait, where are the indigenous Australians, where are the
You
aboriginal
didn't see them.
Australians? And a lot of the times, even in Perth, because of where I lived, being in Bentley, when you saw them, you never saw them in a good light. So for me,
Yeah.
those were some of the things that I started dealing with. I'm like, okay, I don't understand these dynamics or what is going
Yes.
on here. So as much as I was trying to find my own acceptance, I
Mm.
remember being in a store one time and walking, and somebody like clutched their bag. So when they clutched
Oh
their
wow.
bag, I
They took
also was like, oh, let me clutch my bag, because at home, if you're like, oh, so there's a thief somewhere or somebody is going to do something, like this is the reaction you get. So I was also like, oh, who is it?
Oh,
Where should I be aware about my own safety here? What's going on? And then as I was
yes.
passing out and having that reaction, I was like, wait, there's nobody else. I'm the person who's bringing
What
this feeling to
is
somebody to
it?
touch their bag. And I was like, wait, but why? Like, I'm just in the grocery store with you. Um,
Oh
so then I
wow.
started understanding to be like, for me anyway, like a lot of people have faced racism in a very like blatant, in your
Yeah.
face way. But for me, it was subtle things like that where people were just uncomfortable and you were like, I don't understand why you're uncomfortable here. What
Mm.
is it about me that's making you feel uncomfortable? Or you sit
Yeah.
on the train and you see nobody wants, like everybody's passing and
Next to
not
you.
sitting next to you. And I'm like,
Mm.
huh? Am I smelling today? What is happening? And it
Yeah.
took a long time to decipher those things, and also to
Right.
get to a point where it's like, really, it's you. You're at fault.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that journey to acceptance has taken very many years. But I also think the community of African Australians has also grown so much over the years. And there's more shades of us that you can see in the community doing different things, being different people. And so I wouldn't say we're not clubbed as one, but there's
Yeah.
more nuance than there used to be, where everybody was like, you've come through the asylum seeker refugee journey, was the mindset that people have. But
Mm.
now people know that people come through different. Skilled migration is pretty high when it comes to
Yes.
African Australians as well.
Wow. Yeah, no, it is a journey. When we are so far away from home, it certainly is a journey. So, if I could ask you, if you could go back to the younger self, that young girl who left Africa on an adventure to get an education, get a job, in case there's a young African woman who's listening to this podcast right now, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what three nuggets of wisdom could you share?
Yeah, if I go on a tangent, remind me I need to do three. I think the first one, and I'm going to use a proverb, just channeling my grandmother. And the Bemba proverb is "Awushikuta wuchela momo," which translates to "days do not rise the same." And that one is really key for me. It has really helped me understand that sometime when you're in trouble, when you're in sorrow, when you're in pain, it doesn't last forever. Like days do not rise the same. When you're
Mm.
in pain, you're in sorrow, you can't find the solution. Things are really hard. Just know that it's not going to be like that forever. So, you know, find your strength and power and resilience in understanding that something is going to change. And maybe it's also have a little faith and have a little hope that something is going to change. So I would be telling her that, because there's been, you know, in this migrant journey, there's been days when I had zero money in my account. I had no one to ask for money for, because, you know, I probably had money. I'd already asked for money from them, and I didn't know where I was going to get my food, and I didn't know where my fees were going to come from. And somebody, a church friend, just came, and not somebody that I was close with, just came and said, "Hey, I was in the neighborhood and I have these bread rolls and I have these. I thought of you and I brought them." And I was like, you have no idea. I didn't even tell her that, but she had no idea that I had nothing in my fridge.
Wow.
Right? And so that has built a lot of faith in me to say, you know, days are not going to always be hard. There's always something going to work out.
I love that. And that's a really good example of just taking life a day at a time.
Yeah.
Not thinking too far ahead, because a lot of times when we think too far ahead is when we trip ourselves up.
Yeah, very true. The other thing I would think about telling her is like, you are worthy, girl. Girl, sister, you are so worthy. And it's taken me a long time to just be happy about who I am and really understand my worth and not have anxiety. And especially when you got jobs, right? You have anxiety about, am I doing the best? You know, the people of color are always working 200% than everybody else, because you always want to be like high achiever type of mentality. We're taught that since we're young, especially girls, women were just like powerhouses. And so a lot of your worth is steeped in whether you're doing the job right, whether you're a good sister, whether you're a good wife, whether you're a good mother. And if you're failing or you think you're failing in any of those things, you're not worth it, right? The pressure is on, you just really so hard on yourself. So just, you know, you're definitely worth it. You're worth the fight for yourself to bring your own happiness. You're worth the value that if others can't see it, it's their fault, not you. Continue just to your own elevation of worth. Don't stoop down to what they think about you and what they view you as. You are way higher than that, and always think about it in that sense. You're worth a lot more than this world can ever see. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So now let's do a little thought experiment, and I'm going to teleport you into the future.
Okay.
Let's imagine that time is an illusion. Time doesn't exist. Your past, your present, your future exist in this timeline. If I could take you into the future to have a conversation with the 80-year-old you, that wise woman who's led you to that point, based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to her when you finally meet her?
Oh my goodness, I have so many questions for her. I hope she's a rich billionaire. I hope she has lots of wealth, not just physically, emotionally, but monetary as well. Let's see. I think what I would ask her is, how have you found happiness? Because I really think about the simplicity of life is really what we expect when we say we are happy, right? It's not just you being high on endorphins because you want something, or you just ate some really good food, which is great. But yeah, I think the happiness around your well-being and who you are, Mayase, like how have you navigated that and
Thank
tell me
you.
how to be happy as me in every situation, in every situation of the circle of my life. How have you navigated happiness?
Oh, I love that. The other reason why I love to ask women this question on this podcast is because a lot of women don't realize the wise woman is already in us.
Mm,
She's the one who prompts us, who guides us, that little voice of intuition that says, go left, go right, trust this person, don't trust that person. She's already in us. And what I do is I tap into the essence of who I am becoming. So that
yeah,
millionaire, she's there in you.
yeah,
And on my journey to becoming a billionaire, which is my aim,
amen.
I ask myself questions. Like I do my meditation, I do my prayers, and I'll go to sleep with a question in my head as simple as, what is my next step?
Mm,
Wake up in the morning with these knowings of who I should call, who I should talk to, or it just lands. It's just there in my brain what the next step will be, right? So when we're asleep, we're still processing this
yeah,
information. It's going on in our subconscious mind. So that's just a little tip that I always love to share with everybody, that the wise woman is already in you. Trust
I
her.
love that.
Listen to that voice when it tells you to jump. Even if it's irrational for you to do it, do it.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for coming online and sharing your amazing story with us. It's such an inspiration to see another Southern African girl out here in the, what do we call this place?
out here in the down under.
Doing our thing and supporting family back home as well. Absolute pleasure to have met you.
Thank you so much, Gertrude, and thank you for giving me the platform to really share my story, share my heritage. In culture is important. That's the only way you grow, and that's the only way you find your worth. And also being rooted in hearing stories of each other to inspire each other is, I think also the core of her story, because that when you listen to somebody else, you have no excuse. Like, oh my
Exactly.
goodness. Gertrude is from Zim. We're right neighbors. If she's doing it, I can
I
do
can
it.
do it too. Like, that's for sure. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is connecting some phenomenal women, movers and shakers, here to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, and empower you. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing woman. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you again for the interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep